Alright everybody, let's check in with Edge of Eternities. It's been a week since it came out and there's been plenty of movement and fluctuation with prices, but obviously we did a video a little over a week ago looking at pre-sale prices, kind of estimating where things were going to end up, and I'm pretty certain that we were pretty close to accurate with a lot of these, but there have been some that moved a bit more than I would have expected, so I'm going to take a look at some of the more noteworthy movements from the set. I think as a whole, it's been a largely successful product for whatever that's worth. And one of the things I did want to point out is just like looking at the set as a whole. We have a lot of, the booster boxes have stayed pretty high at around 380 on the collector boxes. I think they kind of continue to trend down a little, but I don't think they're going to fall all that low. When you just have a set that has so many potential high rarity lands and staples, it's just unlikely that it's going to, bottom out like any set would, especially with the shorter print runs that we're seeing nowadays. So Stherra, obviously the headliner card for the set, is doing okay for itself around, let's call it 1700. I mean, I didn't think this card was the best decision for a chase simply because it's like a decent card. It's solid for commander, but it's not, it's not even the best new card in the set, in my opinion. But it's definitely selling. There have been some sales and people are obviously looking to go after it. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of them in circulation. And on top of that, I don't think it's going to be like a very, I question whether or not it's going to stay long-term as a high value demand. Now, it's not going to fall to like $1,000 or anything, but it reminds me of sort of the, I think it's the Hidetsugu from Kamigawa, the neon red ink, which I think, and we're going to do a little bit of live searching here. I don't remember exactly what he was at when he came out, but the neon red at one point was very, very high, right? At one point when it had come out, it was like at least over 800. Now it's about 535, and this is not a playable card really. I mean, I guess it's like it's got some niche application, but it's objectively not great comparatively to some of the other high-end chase cards we've seen. So do I think Stherra is going to be as low as this? Probably not, because it is at least more playable, but just interesting to look at the movement on that at the top end of the set. But I'm more concerned about the actual meat and potatoes of the set, because that's where you'll see a lot of movement. And Anti-Causal Vestige is one we talked about quite a bit here. An Eldrazi card that is, I think, decent. It's a rare. It's only around $1.50 for its base version, which is obviously really nice if it's a card you want to play. I also think that it's just generally solid with the warp mechanic, and I think over time you will see this card do okay because it is playable. But I wanted to kind of point attention to the showcase version of the card a little bit, because we've seen a lot of these Japanese showcase cards go up over time, and this feels to me that it's very, very cheap. This is $20 right now, and obviously the card is not seeing any active play anywhere, but a lot can change, and as time passes, especially with cards like Eldrazi, people tend to want to play them in the highest rarity, go after the highest rarity, etc. For $20, it's really not that bad of a pickup, I don't think, if it's a card that you want to play and you have the budget for it. It was obviously pre-selling much higher, which is why I always say be cautious of pre-sales, because they're never really gonna, they will drop, and I think if we look at his Fracture foil, which again is just a crazy market to ever predict, but it's around 150, that's gonna carry a premium because it's a Fracture foil. The regular showcase though, at $20, these are not super easy to pull, right? I mean, they're not super hard to pull, but there's 10 of the Japanese showcase, and obviously pulling any one specific mythic for how infrequently they show up, being only in collector boosters as well. I could absolutely see this card aging really well. So just something to consider for like a long-term viewpoint on a card like this. I think it's very solid. And I think the price is decent. I think if you just want the card in general at $1.50, that's a really good price as well, for a card that will probably see some interest over time. Archenemy's Charm, I mistakenly said this was the second charm. It's actually the third. I completely forgot about Archmage's Charm, which goes back forever. The other two charms have done okay. Both are good. I think this is a decent card. I don't think it's seeing much play right now, but it does feel like one of those cards that might get some more love over time, especially just as a very playable option in Commander. But I mean, it's kind of playable in Standard, I say, trying to convince myself in the process. It's just that it costs 3, and there's some other cards that can kind of remove stuff for 1 or 2. Is it necessarily the best card? No, but is it something to keep an eye on? I don't know. I picked up one of these foil just to have at under $5 because it does feel like in the future it could be a card that people look at, want to go after. It's definitely not bad, and obviously the versatility that it has, being able to get things back, is decent. But overall, I think the Borderless is a good pickup from like a penny stock perspective. So I'm happy to see that that's kind of bottomed out, because I do think it does have some long-term viability. Another card I feel the same way about is Starfield Vocalist, a really strong card that does double triggers of permanents entering the battlefield. Also has Warp. This card is $1. I definitely 100% think this is a worthwhile pickup at $1. It's very playable, obviously, but it's also one of those cards that can just get better with time as more things that want to do stuff with permanents entering are printed or made relevant again. A card like this with an effect like this at $1 is a no-brainer for me. I'm happy to see it's bottomed out. It does have some other versions, including the showcase version, which is really cool. The fracture foil on that has held very strong at $275. But the regular one, you know, $48, it's decent. The art doesn't really do much for me, but I know a lot of people like it. Space aliens singing, whatever. I'm not going to give you any recommendation on purchasing this one because I think the market's way too volatile on those to know, but I do think either of the regular one or the extended art one could both be solid pickups here. Raost, definitely a very popular card people are very excited about. He has fallen out pretty nicely, down to about $3 for the Borderless and then $6 for the foil. He was selling as high as like $20 to $25 in pre-sales, if not more. Actually looks like there was a sale at $49, but I don't know if that's accurate or what. Really good card though. Definitely a card people are going to want to play in Commander. So just something to keep an eye on. I mean, he's super cheap, so if it's something you might have future interest in, I could see like the foil version of this going up over time just because it's of popularity, and it's definitely playable. Like, you can build a deck around it. So, food for thought. Dominion Bracelet's another card we talked about before the set. This is really strong. It's an equipment on an Emrakul, and it's like $1.50. Just a crazy good value. But if you want my honest opinion, if you're buying Dominion Bracelet, the showcase is only at like $3 and change, $7 after shipping. I mean, if this is a card you anticipate playing, it just feels to me like it's too good of a card that won't at some point have demand in the future. And for $7 for the highest rarity collector booster only version, well, not highest rarity, it does have a fracture foil, but I don't know, I think this is a really good value. I think it's a really good card, and I think you're talking about spending an extra $5 to get, you know, a version of it that has a lot of potential over time. I'm happy to see these showcases falling out fairly cheap, especially with the amount of Edge of Eternities being ripped open. There's definitely got to be some give and take, so it's cool to see that this card is there, and I definitely think it's a good pickup at the price that it's currently at. Ice Till Explorer is a crazy good card. I've talked about it a ton. I bought mine the day of release at 11. It's up to 15. It does seem like it keeps trending upwards, but there is also a very large stock. The thing is, this card is just objectively good. In my opinion, one of the best cards in the set, period. It's good in Standard. It's good in Commander. I can't speak to other formats as much, but I'm sure there's probably some use for it there as well. It just does a lot for basically one more mana than a Sousa, but also gives you access to Lands from the Grave, plus the mill. Just a super strong card. It is trending upwards. I definitely, you know, think it could fall back outwards, especially because there are other versions of it, but it's a really good card. I would recommend just owning a copy of it sooner rather than later if you anticipate it being something you're going to play, because I think in terms of rares in the set, it's definitely at the top outside of the Shocklands in terms of playability, but also the Shocklands are cheaper than this, and this does have, you know, just a lot of application, I think, especially in certain decks. So I like it a lot. It is going up. I'm not saying go panic buy it or anything like that, but I am also saying, like, it was at one point like $8 and then has just continued to trend upwards. It's kind of defied that trend of a lot of things dropping once the set releases. So I don't know. I mean, it's 14 and change, but it does have the it does have the showcase stuff, but there again, pretty damn pricey. $250 for the fracture, $60-ish for the showcase. And I mean, I like the pre-release one too, but at that point, you know, $27. I just personally like the stamped cards. I'm not going to make a recommendation on buying pre-release versions of stuff because that's a market that is very dependent on scarcity, playability, and really preference, because you obviously have a bunch of different ways to get some nice stuff. Another card that has actually gone up significantly is Quantum Riddler. Another good card, just has a lot of playability to it. When it enters, you draw a card, and then as long as you have one or less cards in hand, if you would draw a card, you draw that many plus one. So really, really good ways to accelerate your draws. This is like $20. And that's not bad. I mean, obviously, when it was at one point down to like 12-ish, and then the set released, and it was, you know, starting to go from like 16. People started to buy it up. It is one of those cards that has trended upwards since release, but people are realizing it's better than maybe some people had initially thought. Obviously, having warp as well is good for it. The borderless one, which does have some badass artwork as well, is only around $28, so it's like $8 more. If you like this, I mean, if you pay a couple extra bucks and get a version that's probably going to do better over time. But again, you know, if you're building a deck on a budget, you got 20 versus that, you got a better shot of, you know, putting some of your value elsewhere. So it's hard to say, but I do think Quantum Riddler is interesting to keep an eye on. I just don't know. I don't know if he's going to start to trend downwards or if this is just a card that's just going to be more popular as it goes along. It's kind of hard to say. Certainly for 2 mana to be able to just warp it in and then draw a card, especially if you have nothing in hand, you get some extra draw power. That alone is solid for it. We're seeing a lot of movement as well on Consult the Starcharts as just a really good card that lets you dig into the deck. And if you kick it, you do get it extra. So for 4 mana, you look at top X. I mean, if you're playing a deck that's going to get a lot of lands out quickly, it's like 7-ish if at the lowest right now. It has seen a large number of sales, but it started out at 9. It bottomed out to like 3 and change and is starting to trend upwards. It doesn't, I believe it doesn't have any other versions other than this in its pre-release. So I mean, maybe that's something to consider. It is a good card. I feel like it's got to be a standard thing. Standard loves those kind of, you know, easy to get into the deck resources cards, and this doesn't cost a lot of mana. Will it go up more? Hard to say. But, I mean, there's that card from Aether Drift Stock Up that's like $10 for a common, and this is a rare, so maybe. Just checking in quick on the shocks. They seem to be right around where people thought. $8 each on Watery Grave. Sacred Foundry is 8 to 9. I bought a foil one for, I think, 10. Good pickup value. I mean, these are going to trend back up there. I was kind of hoping they were going to bottom out a little bit lower. I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately, but I mean, they're still at a range where they're fairly affordable, and you might even be able to like snipe a good deal here and there. Godless Shrine, same thing at about $8. I think they're trying to hold strong around this price. I just think it just seems to be the reality of it. Breeding Pool at $7, but I mean, before these reprints, Breeding Pool was almost $20. So like, I'd rather pay 10 and get one, or even get a couple copies for decks. So not bad. Stomping Ground is the cheapest one, but still around 8. Like, you know what I mean? They're all kind of in that same ballpark, which is just, you know, they're good deals. And if you're waiting on getting Shocklands, they're probably not going to get much cheaper. Tanuk, Steadfast Second, seeing a lot of popularity, especially as a commander. I do think it's a strong card. I think it has a lot of potential. I just haven't really sat down and done any theory crafting with it beyond just looking at it on paper, but there are a lot of really powerful red and artifact cards that you can definitely like warp them in and get a lot of benefit out of. So he's kind of going fairly well at around 7. He does have a borderless that has some pretty cool artwork. It's around 10, and then the foils definitely gets a bit steeper. Will he have a ceiling? Maybe. I think he's not a card that's going to be like super expensive, but he's also very strong, so maybe if he starts to see more of an impact, he could. I think $7 to $10 is fine, probably, to pick him up as a mythic that has some playability. I don't know. You guys think? Let me know. And lastly, Ouroboros, another one I really wanted to mention here. This card has started to trend upwards. Not a ton, but it has. It did hit a bit of a bottom out point, especially for its base version. It has gone up about $3 or $4. It's a really good card, obviously. It's hindered a little by being a creature simply because, like, you know, it's easier to remove in some cases, but it does slot really well into a lot of decks, especially because it just can, if you can buff this up with something, you can then put a bunch of counters on everything you control. This is probably going to be something that the opponent tries to kill on sight, though, just due to its explosive nature that it can have going for it. So I think Ouroboros is an interesting card to keep an eye on. I think as a whole, the set is doing fairly well. There's a lot of good opportunities to pick stuff up, and we'll check in on it again in a couple weeks, see if there's been any more drastic movement. But I do think there's a lot of value to be had in the set just from like picking up things for your own decks and whatnot at prices that are fairly, you know, reasonable given what you're getting, especially as it comes to the Shocklands and some of the other stuff. Let me know what you guys think. If you want me to take a look at the land sheet, we can do that too in a future video. I just wanted to go over it, do a little bit of a market recap, and yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video.